today, he is no longer a quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. He actually opted out of his contract. And so now he's still looking for a team to sign with. Now, the issue that he's having now is seeming that nobody wants to sign him because of his protest. Now, they call that blackball. Now, from what I remember, blackballing is when you have, and we'll keep it to the NFL. And for those of you that's watching or listening, this is not going to be a football topic. It's involving a football player, so there will be some football discussion. But this is not going to be a sports talk radio show today, I promise. I promise. But when the topic of blackballing came up, what they said was that all 32 NFL owners got together and they all agreed that nobody would sign Colin Kaepernick. Now, that's what everybody feels is going on. Now, there have been a few owners that came out and they said nobody has had any conversations like that. Most recently, the owner of the New York Giants came out and he said no conversation of the sort has happened. There were a few teams that actually considered signing him. The Seattle Seahawks considered signing him. Most recently, the Baltimore Ravens considered signing him, and I have a real issue with the Baltimore Ravens, and that is one of my favorite teams. I really have an issue with them, but they considered signing him. And for a split second, the Miami Dolphins had tossed around the idea of signing him, but of course they signed Jay Cutler. So here we are. He's still looking for a team to sign with, and we're getting ready to start preseason. The first real preseason game is tonight, and so the season is upon us, and now the clock is really starting to tick on whether or not he'll be able to sign, or he'll have an opportunity to sign with a team. So now, here is my stance, and then I'll turn it over to Marcus. This is where I stand. Now, I've put some things out on Facebook, and I went back and forth, of course, with a lot of people, and I mean, it's sports, so, you know, I can go back and forth all day. That I do know. I know Jesus and I know sports. So them two, I can go back and forth all day. Now, I put on Facebook a few points. One of the first points I put up is contract. He was not cut. He was not fired. Now, I do understand that there were reports that San Francisco was going to cut him anyway. But my thing is, you don't do their work for them. If they was going to cut you, let them cut you. You hold on until they cut you. All right? He opted out. Usually when somebody opt out of their contract, they're saying one of two things. They're saying either one, they don't like the situation that they're in and they want to move to a better situation, or two, they feel like they can either get the same money or more money if they opt out of this contract and pursue a bigger deal. That's number two. That's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue that I have is when he realized that his market was not what it was going to be, he came out and he made an announcement that he would no longer protest at the beginning of the games. Now, that's when I got irritated, because now you're making it seem like you're choosing cash over the cause. Now, you didn't make an announcement when you started to protest, but now that you see your market is drying up, or you don't really have a market, now you make the announcement that you will no longer protest, in hopes that that kind of changed the minds of some of the owners that's contemplating signing you. Now, that's to me, that's the bigger issue. But the one thing that I do say, and I don't have no issue with him protesting. I actually agreed with the way he protested. I actually agree with why he was protesting. Absolutely no issue at all. The biggest issue that I have in this whole thing is, if you're for the cause, you have to accept the responsibility and the consequences of what you're believing in. Now, if I'm Colin Kaepernick and I believe in what I'm protesting 100%, my thought process would be, I don't care if I never get signed again, if I never make another dollar in the NFL. I believe in this cause so much until it's not worth me undoing what I've already started. By him saying I'm not going to kneel no more, it's almost like, okay, y'all won. I'll do what I need to do to get a job. And I thought that came off money hungry. Now I get everybody deserves a job, everybody deserves a second chance. I get all of that. But when you start talking about causes and you start talking about protesting and things of that nature, to me, it's almost like you have to pick and choose. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And more times than not, when you're doing something this radical and this drastic, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. People in the civil rights, they actually died for what they believed in. And we're getting upset because he's not having a chance to play quarterback. I think what he's fighting for is worth more than any other contract that he can get in the NFL. So that's where I'm at. It's going to cost you something. If he don't work, and I'm not, because at the end of the day, it's the owners, it's their choice. It's their choice. If they don't want to sign him because they feel like his production, and I feel like that too, I don't think his production will outweigh all of the criticisms that they're going to get. Now, is he a bad quarterback? No. Is he a great quarterback? No. I think he's a functional quarterback in the NFL. But when you have to deal with all of the criticisms and the issues and the sponsorships and the money that you could lose, that's attached to signing him, if his play is not going to help you recoup that, then I wouldn't sign him either. So that's where I'm at. It's either the cause or the cash. And right now, to me, by him saying he's going to decide to not kneel no more, to me, he chose the cash. So I'll turn it over to Marcus. You give me your thoughts.
Man, well, first of all, thank you for having me back, man. I appreciate
yes, sir.
The opportunity. Man, you said so much, man, that needs to be unpacked, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to remember everything. First of all, the cause of the cash. Let's start here. I will give Colin Kaepernick a free pass on him saying that he would no longer kneel. The reason why I would give him that free pass is because kneeling really brought the issue of police brutality to the forefront in a way that nothing had up until that point. And it's not that it hadn't been talked about.
Right.
It's not that it had not been in our consciousness.
Right.
The issue was this, that a lot of times in sports we separate ourselves so much with what's going on in the world at large, that sports for a lot of people is an escape from quote unquote real life. And once the sporting event is over, it's back to life, back to reality. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And what Colin Kaepernick successfully did was he brought an issue that was in the forefront. He brought it into the sporting world in such a fact that you could no longer escape from it.
Right.
With sports. So that was the first thing. He was able to successfully do that. I think that was his foray into activism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he was a huge activist before that, but if you really go back and you look at a lot of the things that he has said since he started doing that, and you can look at the substance of what he said and how he said it, and just talking about how he was learning and reading and really absorbing what was going on and how it touched him.
Right.
There has been a maturation and a progression in his mind and in his heart that to where he got to a point that he knew that he could no longer sit back and not do anything, and he recognized that he had a platform that he could use to advance the conversation. So kneeling was a starting point for him.
Right.
Kneeling was not the only thing that he did. It was a starting point. Now, if it was the only thing that he did, if his activism not only started but ended with kneeling, then I would be in 100% agreement with what you said. The reason why I give him the free pass, and I didn't necessarily like it when he said that, that he would no longer kneel, but I understood it, because it's natural to still want to be able to get compensated doing what God has gifted you to do.
Right.
I think that it was definitely a calculated move on his part to even protest in the first place. I think he had to have had a little bit of self-awareness to know that that what he was doing, and he didn't announce it. He didn't announce it at all. He just did it.
Yeah.
And it took, I believe the story was, it took about 3 preseason games for somebody to figure out what he was doing. And when he was asked about it, he didn't shy away from it.
Right.
He didn't try to pass it off as anything. He was honest. He was forthright, and he came with facts, and he came with a perspective that people could see very quickly that he was educated about what he was talking about.
Right.
And he didn't come out bombastic or anything like that, but he was really calculated and measured in what he said and what he did. Now, like I said, the kneeling it was the starting point, but it wasn't the ending point. After he did that, you can see the progression of what he started doing and how active he started to be in the community. He donated money, like his own money to real money to causes, and not only did he donate his money to causes, he put in some sweat equity into some organizations as well, and actually went to places to do work and to dialogue with people. And so I think that he has proven in that he is about what he says that he is about. That's the reason that I will give him a free pass on that. What I want to focus on, or what I want to what I really want to talk about is the progression of the narrative around this whole story. Anyway, we don't even have to really talk about too much what happened during the season. Now, this is the only thing I'll say football related. Like you said,
we can't get away from it.
Right.
But it won't be
like you said, this is not a football.
Right.
It's not football hour.
Right.
It does. It does need to be stated that Pro Football Focus, which is one of the leading websites in the world as far as analytics for the game of football, position by position. From a statistical standpoint, he was not at the bottom of the league as far as starters.
Right.
There were several starters. I think there were 33, if I'm not mistaken, 33 qualifying quarterbacks from 2016. And his Pro Football Focus rating was not 33rd. It wasn't 32nd. It wasn't 30th. It was somewhere.
It was like 25th 23, 22.
I was about to say 25, but it
25,
may even be,
yeah.
it might be 22, 23. So, yeah, he might be in the bottom third of starters, but he's still there. You know what I'm saying? He's right there. He's not, you can do worse as a starting quarterback. You can fare worse as a football team than Colin Kaepernick as your starting quarterback. Let's just put a pin right there. You can do worse in the NFL today than having Colin Kaepernick as your starting quarterback.
Agreed.
Now let's look at how this thing progressed in the offseason. All right, so he opts out of his contract, and I'm with you. To me, that was the big mistake that he made, opting out of his contract. I've been trying to figure out and be trying to reason why he would do that. I still don't understand that. There might be something about contracts that I might not understand, but I don't know why he did that.
And I got something for contracts too.
Okay. So what we began to hear was he opted out of his contract, and then there was a period of time where there wasn't really any news whatsoever going on with anybody trying to sign him, and so the further that we got into the offseason, as he wasn't getting signed, and other players without the resume and without the proven ability that Colin Kaepernick has shown, as they began to get signed, and he wasn't, then people started to talk again. Now, what were people saying? What were the quote-unquote experts saying pretty much across the board? They were saying that, this doesn't have anything to do with blackballing. I mean, everybody said it.
Right.
It was almost as if it was a talking point that was given to a lot of these media members. This is not about being blackballed. This is not about Colin Kaepernick is not being kept out of football because he kneeled during the national anthem. He has not been signed purely because of his ability, purely because of talent. That was across the board what we heard.
And that's ridiculous.
All winter.
That's ridiculous.
All spring long, all we've heard was he was not signed because he just doesn't have the ability. And then as people started to really think about that, and to really consider the fact that that's pretty outlandish. The nuance with that became, he's not good enough to justify the distraction that's going to come to our team because he hasn't been signed,
and that's
or because we signed him.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. I don't think, like I said, I don't think he's a terrible quarterback, but I don't think when you weigh the pros and cons that he's going to produce enough on the field to outweigh the criticism and the issues that actually comes with him. Now, to your point, when he was in San Francisco, Chip Kelly, who was the coach at the time, he did say that as far as locker room and being a distraction, that he was a model player in the locker room. Like, it really wasn't a distraction for him for the team at the time. But for whatever reason, I can't say for whatever reason, because a lot of this is media driven, and so a lot of the issues that a lot of the reason why it's as big as it is because of the media. Because another issue that I have is he's not saying nothing. He's not saying anything. Now, I've seen reports where they say he's not willing to sign for the veteran minimum, which is $900,000, which is a long way from $12 million. I've heard reports saying that he only wants to be a star. He wants the opportunity to start. He don't want to be signed as a backup. You know what I'm saying? But all of this is coming from sources, and he's not saying anything. Now, to backtrack to the beginning, one of the most irritating, if that's a word, one of the most irritating parts of the whole story is that how he protested became the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never really about why he was protesting. It always became about the protest itself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, that eats at the core of why this is such a big deal in the first place. Because now they're saying he doesn't have a job because he kneeled and because he protested. And his protest was taken out of context because they made it seem like that he was disrespecting our servicemen, our country, and his protest had nothing to do with the disrespect of our servicemen. His protest was solely on police brutality, and they made it about his kneeling and not about why he was actually protesting. And now we have this big to do. He's being blackballed, and don't nobody want to deal with him. Don't nobody want to sign him. And I mean, it's really gotten blown out of proportion on the raw narrative of why he actually protested. And to me, that's what bugs me the most. Like, we shouldn't really be here on the premise of a falsehood of why he was protesting. They made it so much about him kneeling and him disrespecting the country when the country disrespects its own country.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We disrespect ourselves. So why is he being quote unquote blackballed for doing the same thing that the country do to itself?
Yeah. I think that I think that this whole situation should be a case study in education on communication.
Mm-hmm.
This should be for all time. This should be a classic case study that is used in communications curriculum all over the nation.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely different ways to approach, how you conduct yourself in public, and there's some people who say, you know what, I'm just gonna let my actions do the talking.
Right.
I'm not gonna be out here yapping.
Right.
I don't need to do that. And that might be, that appears to be his personality.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, other people have, because he hasn't said a whole lot of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Other people have been allowed to control the narrative in this situation.
Exactly.
And that is the biggest issue here.
Yeah.
That is the biggest issue here, because you have people say in the next the next progression beyond his not being signed because he's being a distraction, or that the next complaint that was talked about in the off season during the spring, or actually during the summer, is he shouldn't be spending so much time in Africa or whatever. He should be training, or he should be, he cares more about Africa than he does about playing football and this and that. Now, I mean, he does have to live his life. I mean, what do you want him to do?
Exactly.
Right. And I feel like there was an opportunity for a good publicist, and he must not have a publicist. Is the point of what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that's a dumb argument. Because I mean, let's take it a step further. Let's go to the obvious next step and look at what just happened when Miami signed Jay Cutler. What was Jay Cutler doing?
Nothing. He was getting ready to do TV.
He was getting ready to do TV, but I mean, what was he doing physically? He was doing nothing.
Nothing.
He saw him with his shirt off. He had not been training.
Right.
He was he was sitting on the beach with his wife, having a good time.
Right.
He had accepted the fact that he was retired, and that was it. And enjoying his wife, enjoying his family, cool. But
to Jay Cutler's point, even with, because he was actually a free agent too, and he wasn't getting no attention, just like Colin Kaepernick. He was getting no love at all. But and we're not gonna get into why they signed him, because it actually made sense, because he knows the offense and the playbook of where he's going. But one of the biggest comparisons between those two is Jay Cutler ain't that much of a better quarterback than Kaepernick. When it comes to production and when it comes to physical talent, I mean, they almost running neck and neck. But Cutler is not coming with the criticism. Just like, okay, so the Baltimore Ravens, and anybody knows I love the Baltimore Ravens. I love them. But the route that they took to come up with their decision whether or not to sign Colin Kaepernick had to be the most cowardice route that you can ever come up with. Now I get you want to appease the fans because those are your customers. I get that. But that's either the way you're going to operate all the time,
right,
or you're not going to operate like that at all. And for them to ask the fans if they would be okay with, it's almost like they treated Kaepernick like he was a draft pick. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he's coming fresh out of college and they doing their due diligence and they talking to people and they asking people and I'm like, dude, he been in the league 5-6 years. You know what I'm saying? It's either you gonna sign him and deal with what comes with it, or you not. For you to be asking fans and sponsors and all that, that was so weak. That was so weak.
That was very weak on a couple of different levels. First of all, what you said about the fans, I believe the same thing. I mean, you want to show appreciation to your fans, for supporting your product. Absolutely. But how many decisions have you consulted the fans?
None.
So are you starting a precedent right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I take an issue with what did the owner say? He said, "Pray for us."
Pray for us.
I have an issue. Now I'm a man of the cloth, and I'm a man of prayer, and and I believe wholeheartedly in the power of prayer. You know what I'm saying? But
that was ridiculous.
Nothing grinds my gears more than somebody hiding behind quote unquote prayer because they don't want to make a decision. You know what I'm saying? That's just not going to work for me. If you're having if you're really having a tough decision, you know what I'm saying? Like, you take it to the Lord in prayer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, this ain't got nothing to do. This ain't got nothing to do with prayer because,
I want you to win. I don't care. I want my team to win.
The worst thing the worst thing that could have happened in the argument against blackballing, like people still trying to say it's about talent. The worst thing that could have happened against that argument is what the owner of the Baltimore Ravens did, and basically coming out and talking about being uncomfortable with the whole thing. He really showed. He really showed his behind, and he showed the owners' collective behind, all as a collective group, and it makes me think that in no uncertain terms that blackballing is exactly what has happened here, because you have a head coach in John Harbaugh who was interested in signing him. His brother had immense success with him.
Right.
You know.
Right.
The general manager, Ozzie Newsome, widely regarded as one of the better general managers in all of football, wanted to sign him. So from a football standpoint, they wanted to sign him. Yet the owner is squeamish about the whole thing and is clearly afraid to do so. And so that is the biggest indication right there that there have been conversations with owners about this particular situation. And so that was the worst thing that could have happened.
Right.
In the whole conversation against that. I mean, that really frustrated me more than anything else. And also the whole thing with now other players, other former players have started to say different things. And it just really frustrates me. What Ray Lewis said absolutely flabbergasted me. I mean, the rap that Ray Lewis was able to be, I mean, tremendous player. He inspirational speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Turned his life around. For him to have the gall, the unmitigated gall, to say what he said after beating the rap that he beat, and knowing that he could be all the way behind bars right now, just totally frustrated me. And then what Mike Vick had to say about Colin Kaepernick's hair, just that flabbergasted me as well. I mean, I don't know what
he started. He said the first thing he needed to do.
The first thing.
He started at his hair.
So, I have.
Oh my God.
I mean,
I think what I think what's happening. I think what's happening now is we are at a point where Kaepernick he's created this windstorm of attention that really has nothing to do. Like, we don't even talk about police brutality.
And that's unfortunate.
And that's unfortunate because that was the core of the protest. It is so far removed from the issue that we really should be talking about. And I believe it's by design for them to deter our attention from what the real issue is, which is police brutality. Now, I put a post up yesterday. And I got some feedback, and I have some comments I need to go back and read. But I put, I said, people want to boycott the NFL, but they don't want to vote. And of course, that ruffled some feathers. But y'all, everybody that know me, I don't care. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and I love people that disagree because I'm one of those ones. I can go back and forth, but I'm paying attention. And if you say something I agree with, I agree. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind learning. You know what I'm saying? I don't go into it trying to change anybody's opinion. I feel how I feel. You feel how you feel. We go back and forth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's all good. You know what I'm saying? And of course, there are some people that feel like, voting is irrelevant. Voting don't matter. Our votes don't count. I mean, all of that stuff. And I get it. But I think we as a people, and in particular, black people, I think we make it easy for everybody else to deter the attention. You know what I'm saying? It's like to the point now we're so wrapped up in getting Colin Kaepernick a job until we're not actually pushing his assignment. Because now I think this is I think this is an assignment for him now. I think it started out as an assignment. And I think we've gotten so wrapped up into what they want us to pay attention to that we actually are aiding in the detour of the actual, you know what I'm saying, of the actual issue. We're so focused on getting him a job in the NFL until we're not even talking about the issue that he started protesting for. Right. So we're as much of the problem as we call ourselves boycotting the NFL being the solution.
And that's another reason why good publicist, a good social media consultant, or something like that could help to really push his narrative more and bring the conversation back. Because one thing that it was talked about briefly, but it hasn't necessarily been talked about since. You know, you're right in that, you know, we haven't been talking about police brutality lately at all. And he did that. He did bring that to the forefront, and it was being talked about a lot at the time that he did it. But the thing that was also brought up was the fact that the negative racist origins of the Star Spangled Banner in the first place. And that's something that very few people talked about at the time, and it's definitely not being talked about now. Like I can never support the national anthem ever again, knowing the full song, having seen the full lyrics. You know, and for anybody who has not done that,
and the meaning behind it,
and the meaning behind it. If anybody who does not has not seen that, Google is your friend. And you should spend a little bit of time Google this afternoon during your lunch hour or something, because as an African American male, I just cannot, in any kind of good conscience, sing or support the national anthem ever again, knowing what the origins of it are. You know what I'm saying? And knowing the negative connotation. It's not even connotation. Knowing the negative message that is there for black people. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that's not talked about at all. It's kind of faded into memory. You know, you have just business as usual as far as black singers and performers singing the national anthem again, and nothing has happened. And I think that's a really unfortunate thing for me. Now, the thing that I'm conflicted with is, because I'm always thinking about the next generation. I'm always thinking about the young people. I need to know what message is being sent right now to young people. I think that Kaepernick did inspire the younger generations when he first started this thing. When you're talking about, is an organization going to, will it be to the detriment or to the benefit to bring him in? And even from a bottom line standpoint, not just of wins and losses, but of dollars and cents. I mean, if you look at his merchandise, you know what I'm saying, his jersey sales went up significantly because of it. So I think he did inspire people, did inspire young people. But as this continues to go on and the situation does not change, I wonder what kind of message is sent out then. If you have the courage to speak for what you believe in, if you have the courage to go against the grain and to do what is not conventional, if you have the courage to have a conscience and to want to speak that conscience, if you have the courage to speak what God has told you to speak, excuse me, what's going to be the result of that? Are you going to suffer consequences because you decided that you were going to have the courage to say what you wanted to say and to attempt to speak truth to power? I'm wondering if I'm wondering what kind of message young people are getting from this, because it seems as if, on the surface right now, speaking your mind and really having a conscience and not just letting issues that are happening, not just letting them pass over your head, but actually wanting to tackle them head on, has negative consequences. Right. That's really what I'm worried about at this point.
And I think to that point, I think that's this. The scripture that says many are called but few are chosen really applies here, because I think when you decide to fight for a group of people the way that he's fighting, everybody is not going to, first of all, if you feel like you have to gain the approval of the majority, for us as black people, we're going to always be the minority. We're going to always be the minority. So we have to have a mentality of we're not going to get the majority of the support of what we say or what we do or how we fight. Even if everybody on our side of the line is behind us, we'll still be the minority. You know what I'm saying? So with that in mind, we have to have the mentality of, regardless of how much pushback I get, if this cause is worth me fighting for, I got to keep fighting. But that's why we don't have a large group of people that will continue to fight when they get opposition. And that was one of the biggest, you know what I'm saying, when he said, well, I'm not going to kneel no more. Because when he first started kneeling and they asked him about it, he said, well, I'm going to keep kneeling until I see significant change.
Yeah. And
when he said that, I'm like, bet. Now, if he would have said, well, this is going to be my protest for the year because I'm not as, I hate what's going on with our young people and police brutality and blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? So he kind of like put himself in the box and saying, well, no, I'm going to keep kneeling until I see significant change. And my thing is, you didn't see significant change for you to change your mind after you saw you wasn't about to get signed. To me, that's when it was like, okay, do I really want to keep doing this, or do I have to succumb to the culture to get a job?
Yeah.
And my thing is, you'll never gain their approval just by accepting their rules if you've already shown that you're willing to fight against it. He already showed his hand. You know what I'm saying? He already showed his hand. So my thing is, if you're going to be all in, be all in. And to me, when he said, I'm going to stop kneeling, to me, that was like a way of him changing course a little bit. Now, is he still doing some things, activism? And let me say too, even before he started kneeling, he was still an activist. He was still doing stuff. I mean, if you go back and look at his Twitter feed, he was always saying stuff and doing stuff. It just brought more attention when he actually started kneeling. So this really is who he is. It's getting more pub now because of what he, the stance that he took. But I think at the end of the day, I feel like if he believes in this cause this much, if he don't never get another check from the NFL, it was worth it to me. His stance that he taking is worth it, and what he has to go through comes with it. You know what I'm saying? The ridicule and the blackballing and all of that, it comes with it. And if it was easy, more people would have done it. That's where I feel. If it was that easy, more people would do it. But that's why the scripture, many are called, few are chosen. There's a lot of people that probably want to do it, but it's not in them to do it.
Right.
It's in him to do it. You know what I'm saying? And this is the concept. This this is the consequence of taking a stance like that.
Right. And I can definitely understand because of this consequence. I can definitely understand people who are talking about boycotting the NFL because and this is not even universal across all the professional sports. I mean, if you look at today's NBA, and I mean today's NBA is a little bit different than it was 20 years ago. I mean, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf,
Right.
he was a great
Right.
player who ended up kind of being blackballed out of the league
Yep.
because of his activism.
Yep.
Same thing happened to Craig Hodges, if we go even further
Right.
back into the early 90s.
Yep.
He kind of suffered the same fate. But this is a different NBA.
Mhm.
In that, and Mark Cuban said it himself as an owner, a white owner,
Right.
said, I think he said Colin Kaepernick's activism will be welcome in the NBA. I don't know if he used those exact words, but it was something to that effect. Players in the NBA are definitely more, they're more allowed to be able to take a stand.
Right.
And that's a very good thing. And highlights even more why people are so upset with the NFL in particular, because you don't have that freedom in the NFL. Not only do you not have that freedom in the NFL, there were more stringent, policies,
Right.
that came out of Kaepernick
Right.
deciding to do what he did, and so it's really unfortunate, and I don't know when the situation is going to change, but I do think that this is going to be ultimately a negative. It's going to be a black eye against the league. Now, we all love football, and by and large, we're going to watch football.
Right.
It is what it is. There's so many more things that we can do that I think even at the grassroots level that are going to be more effective in the here and now
Right.
than boycotting the NFL. I mean, there's a lot more things that we can do, and like you said, it starts with voting. If you look at just the primaries yesterday, I mean, come on. Yes, Detroit has lost so much as far as population. From a population of more than 2 million at its peak to now 600,000.
Yep.
Even in that, there's still great opportunity, and you can have a great city at 600,000 people. You know what I'm saying? But how can you be great if you have 600,000 people and the leading vote getter for mayor didn't even get 50,000 votes? What kind of foolishness is that? And not only that, that under 50,000 votes, that was what was that? That was what, 69% of the vote, something like that.
69% of the vote.
At 47, 48, 49,000 people out of, and I know it's not out of 600,000 people, because it's not 600,000 people who are of voting age, but let's even say it was let's even say it was 400,000 people. I don't know. I don't have those numbers of how many people are voting age, or how many adults there are in the city of Detroit. Let's even say it was 400,000. That's still bad.
At 7 o'clock, when I went to go vote, I was number 57. At 7 o'clock.
At night.
At night. I was number 57.
I was number 4. It wasn't 7 o'clock, but it was earlier, but still.
That's
It was no line to go vote.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I'll be very honest with you. When it comes down to voting for the city, the minute we let Charles Pugh as president of the city council, I knew it was a problem. I knew it was a problem. I mean, off the rip. I mean, that was a sign of Trump coming right there. For real, anytime you let somebody who had he wasn't even in the debate class at his school when he became the president of city council of a major city.
But you see the parallel. It was all based off of TV and
His popularity. No,
it was the same thing.
The same, but that's the problem.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I never knew Detroit to become starstruck until that happened.
Yeah, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of a voting base who is not involved in the political process.
They look like I heard that name before, basically.
Right. And it's not in a population that does not read.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I got attacked.
I'm sorry to have to
yesterday too. I got attacked for that yesterday too.
I mean, the whole
I hate to have to go there, but
I mean, no, that's very important. Like,
it's
important. They said that 68% of the city of Detroit was illiterate, and I kind of believe that. But in the Midwest, that was the whole poll in the Midwest too, because by us being industrial states and people looking for jobs, they had to pick things up, put them down, basically. You know what I mean?
Right.
Drill or unscrew, however.
Right.
It didn't take no education, it take a thinker or nothing to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what I gotta do? Yeah. Okay, and that was it. And that went on for generations. So, you know, a father, a son come home and said, Dad, you know what, I wanna make music. You're like, no, boy, you gonna work in this plant.
Right.
You know what I mean? You gonna make a living for you and your kids to come. Hey man, you know, you putting kids on me already, and Dad, I'm 18. You know, you gonna have kids, and if you gonna have them, you gonna be a man, and you gonna have a job. You know what I mean? And then, but it's a lot of other stigmas that goes along with the illiteracy, because you know, a son look at his father like my daddy and my mother don't know how to read. You know what I mean? But my daddy got a job. I'm always cooking, so it must be okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? So in other parts of the world, like New York, people don't understand there was 28 different types of immigrants falling right off of that water. You know what I mean? So the educational part it was more of a challenging part to learn, because they had to learn how to speak to each other, communicate with each other. And in the Midwest area, we didn't have that. We had trees, trucks, and drums. You know what I mean? At the end of the day.
Right.
So all I try to explain to people is, when it comes down to voting, first you gotta know what you're voting for. You know what I mean? There's not enough of us in Lansing to fight for nothing, because once we get there, there's 4 of us, we roll together, but we fight against each other once we get there.
Right.
So at the end of the you're like, no, yes, maybe, possible. It's like what? So
right.
We are our worst enemy when it comes to making an agreement or come to agreements or something, and we don't control. We need to come together and make a commerce. If you don't have no control of something, you know what I mean, you lose control of everything. And that's what most people do not get. Kwame Kilpatrick said it years ago. And you know what I mean? He said, if we don't have our own banks, and we don't bank Don Davis on having these banks, you know what I mean? And we don't bank with, I don't know if you remember, he tried to get a lot of city workers just to bank with First Independence. You know what I mean? It's like, if we don't have commerce, we don't say, hey, if 100,000 people don't stand up and say, hey, we pulling our money from your bank. You know what I mean? You know how many banks in the city of Detroit? I mean, national banks. These ain't no city banks and no just credit unions. There's every major national bank in the country here, except for Wells Fargo, the only bank that's not here.
Wow.
But we don't. But if we say, okay, we're not gonna bank, we're just all gonna bank with First Independence. First Independence say, you know what, you bank with us, we can put interest rates on. You know, we need to do something. Right. But there's nobody to agree with that to bring it to them. The UAW sold up. You know what I mean?
Oh boy.
I believe I'm sorry. I went on a tangent.
Right.
Praise the Lord.
No, it's all good. But I don't want to say attack, but I think our priorities just get so off whack, so easy, because even if and one of my friends on Facebook, he made a great point. He said boycotting the NFL watching games is not. That's not going to do nothing.
Oh,
He said, now if you stop supporting their sponsors, that's when you start affecting the NFL, because the NFL is sponsor driven.
yeah, but here's the thing: if you do boycott the NFL, the sponsors want to see their food and their commercials and everything else won't get seen. So it has to start somewhere. A boycott, a blackout, it will start. And then guess what? Because in game 2 is supposed to be season game 2 in the postseason, and then Pepsi be like, wait a minute, we paid for 16 games. You know what I mean? We pay $1 million per game. You know what I mean?
But the thing is, the NFL got their money because they do contracts years and years in advance. So the NFL gonna see that sponsorship money,
they will
but the
not.
sponsors won't see it if we stop supporting the
No,
sponsors.
they ain't gotta go. And that's a falsehood. Yeah, the contract is there, but the contract also stipulates a certain amount of coverage it has to be. They have to, I know personally from a Pepsi Cola contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pepsi Cola. I don't remember when. You remember when basketball when they went on that strike? Okay, contract strictly stipulates on this network, right?
Mm-hmm.
They pay for X amount of commercials and branding, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it do not happen, the NFL will owe them. You gotta remember the NBA will owe them. Remember, these companies are non-profit organizations. That's what we don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
They're non-profit, and non-profit has to mean non-profit. Meaning at the end of the year or the end of the season, whatever, NBA, NFL, the money has to be almost at a zero base, correct? So when you think about it, they ain't like they got their money yet. They still on the once it's done, it's done. Because sometimes Pepsi they come up with different campaigns, so they ain't paying for it.
But here's the thing: I can watch the game and still not go in the store and buy the pop.
But that's not the agreement. That's not. They ain't
But
saying-
but I'm watching. I'm watching the game, but I'm not buying their pop, so I can still see the advertisement and not support the sponsor.
You said it earlier. He said it earlier. It's not about them going immediately. It's the fact that it wasn't branded in their head. And if they're doing the campaign, it's gearing up to a Christmas or a Thanksgiving. They okay, last year we was at 82% of sales due to, and we got our return, what you call that? ROI.
Yeah, return on
investment.
Yeah.
Now, this year, y'all went and blocked out 2 games, and we at 32%. They can actually say, due to the fact that it was blacked out, people boycotted it, it didn't go on, and their profit, their return on investment was nowhere near the same. So trust me, when it comes to sponsorship, it's easier to pull a sponsorship on, or say NFL. You see what they did last week? What? Pepsi had backed out of the NFL for 2 years, because what? NFL wasn't on internet. Like, why are we gonna pay you $20 million for a Super Bowl? You know what I mean? You're not streaming. So what do? The following 2 years after that, they straight to Super Bowl. Because they understand money. Money runs the NFL, so they say, hey, we can't do that no more. So trust me, if people start boycotting and blacking out, it'll be heard, and it will be a hit list.
But to counter that, it's been teams in the NFL that was blocked out for years because they wasn't selling out their arenas, and that was a part of the TV contract. You had to sell out your arena to get on TV.
And that sponsor probably did not pay whatever they're supposed to pay.
No, that was the stipulation of the league. They had to sell out their arena in order for their games to be broadcast on TV. That has nothing to do with the product that you have to buy from those sponsors.
Well, it does, because the sponsorship involves television time, and they paying for it. And
But we're funding the sponsors. If we're not buying their product, they have no money to give off to advertise their product.
But just so you can understand, sponsors basically run in a particular way. And the sponsor said, I'm not going to pay for people to see my brand if it's not a full stadium. It doesn't help me.
Well, we have to look at the magnitude. Okay, there are a number of different things that can have an impact,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to look at the magnitude of each thing. Which one will have the most impact? How much impact would not going to the stadium have
Mm-hmm.
against versus how much would not watching the game, you know, as a collective, how much would that impact?
But
How
they
much
work
would
hand in hand, right?
they work hand in hand, but one has more impact than the other.
Right, if you don't go to the
How-
game, you can't get seen on TV. If there's not the people there, then they're not gonna show it. And that's what I'm saying.
But you, I mean, you also have. That's what I'm saying. The magnitude is levels to this because
Oh, definitely.
because the one reason why there's parity in the NFL and there's not parity in Major League Baseball, for instance, is because you have revenue sharing in the NFL. And there are a lot of different things that are set up in place to where a franchise that is down doesn't have to be down for that long.
Mm-hmm.
With that revenue sharing piece, well, yeah, you might not, some of your games might be blacked out or whatever, but at the end of the day, teams that are making the bulk
Mm-hmm.
of the revenue gain, your Cowboys of the world and your Giants of the world or whatever, they are supplying that overall revenue that is being shared. Now, when you're talking about, I'm talking about impact. If you look at it at a local level, well, not going to the game is going to have more of an impact locally than not watching it on television. Because if you're looking at locally, you know, what happens when what happens for the owners when the tickets are not sold? What also happens when merchandise is not purchased at the stadium? What happens when concessions are not, you know what I'm saying? So that has more of an immediate impact right there. But then if you look at also, and you were making a point about, you know, the NBA striking, you know, they went on strike, you know, back in the 90s. The NHL also went on strike, but you know, the NHL is not a great example because they ultimately, and I had to go back and look at really what happened and study that thing a little bit more, but they were largely unsuccessful in what they were trying to do, and now that, you know, the NHL's contracts, you know, they're guaranteed or whatever, but they're not great contracts. They don't make the kind of money, you know, and they just don't. Their players just don't make the kind of money that other players in other sports make. But let's look at the NBA. All right, the NBA has been more successful in being able to get what it wants than the NFL has. Richard Sherman made a great point. You know, sometimes you're gonna have to sacrifice some things, and you're gonna really have to lay it down for a little while. And yes, some pockets are gonna be hurt, but are you going to be willing to do that? And it's a difficult thing because not everybody doesn't make the same amount of money, man.
Right.
It's going to hurt some people more than it's going to hurt others.
Yeah,
But,
I agree.
you know, there is a level of sacrifice that's going to have to be made at some point. And, you know, we've never really seen a strike like that. At least not in my lifetime in the NFL. You know, we were close to it, but, you know, there were some last minute things that were done. But
the NFL struck in the 80s, and the league actually went and got other players to come in and play. And when the NFLPA saw that, that's when they came up with an agreement. They actually struck, and it was almost like if we go to strike at Ford, then Ford will try to call in a temp agency and bring some other players in. You know what I'm saying? Now, they got to deal with walking across that picket line. You know, you take the chances if you want to. You know what I'm saying? But the NFL actually, they actually struck.
But what was that? I'm trying to remember exactly what happened with that when they brought replacement players in. Did that happen? Like, did they go into the regular season like that?
Yeah.
Like how? Because
No. It was still preseason.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
game checks have started.
okay. I mean, you have to really decide how far you're going to take it. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
you got to call. You might want to have to call people's bluff and see just how far, you know what I'm saying, you can, just see what kind of impact you can have. I mean, with replacement players, I mean, there's a huge impact that can have to the point where, if the product on the field is not at a certain level, then what kind of impact is that going to have on fans showing up and on merchandise being sold? What's going to happen with that? Sometimes you got to see that thing play out a little while.
And we'll wrap it up. But to me, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. Is it's going to cost you something. Whatever you fight for, if it's worth it, it's going to cost you something. If it's not going to cost you a couple of game checks, it might cost you your job altogether. But is what you fighting for worth that? You know what I'm saying? That to me, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. Just like what 13% of the population?
Yes.
Okay, so we're 13%. If all 13% of us decide not to do something, how much suffering is whatever we're boycotting going to really benefit? You know what I'm saying? How much are we really hurting? You know what I'm saying? And that's what that's what the other side. They have trained us to feel like what we're doing is not beneficial. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that's why what Colin Kaepernick, I've said his name so many times now, it's a stumbling block. Colin Kaepernick, I think that's why what he's doing should be commended and applauded, because when he started, he didn't care. You know what I'm saying? And now the narrative has changed to it's almost like we're caring for him and he's not even saying nothing. But we're not even caring about why he did it. We're caring about his dollars. You know what I'm saying? We're not even caring about the cause.
Right.
We just want him to have another job. You know what I'm saying? So my question is, if he do get signed by another team, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Question.
What does it mean if he actually gets signed by another team?
That's the real question.
What does that mean? Did he accomplish anything?
Nope.
If he gets signed?
Nope.
If he gets signed, it's okay to start watching football games again? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing?
We gotta learn how to choose our battles properly.
What are we doing? So we're not gonna watch football games, and then as soon as he gets signed, now we're gonna turn the TV back on. What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, do we really get it?
We have to learn. we as a people have to really learn to start controlling the narrative and really start to shape. Not that we try to brainwash people or anything like that, but I really think that the GOP, and harkening back to what we talked about, previously, I really think that the GOP. They're always on brand. They're always on message. Until this time, and deciding to go behind Trump,
Right.
and back him up. They just were concerned more about winning than about who they are. Because Trump is not part of who the GOP is, and I'm not saying that to support the GOP. I don't.
Right.
They have talking points. GOP has a brand. You pretty much know what you're gonna get,
Right.
when you are dealing with a Republican. Whether you agree with that or not, you know where a Republican stands
Right.
on issues,
Right.
because they get together, the leadership, they get together and they craft a narrative, and they craft talking points, and they at least attempt to get on the same page when it comes to that kind of
Right.
stuff. I think as a community, black people, we don't have a narrative. You know what I'm saying? We don't have a story that we stick to, and and that story is important when we talk about what our agenda is. To answer your question, you know what I'm saying? When it's time to really define what winning looks like,
Mm-hmm.
when we start to really define what a solution looks like
Yeah.
to a or what problem are we fighting?
Right.
That's
Right.
the other part of the question.
Agree.
What do we? What did you say exactly? You said what was your question again?
If he gets signed, like what did he accomplish?
What-
Because the thing is, there are a lot of people saying that I'm not going to watch an NFL game until Colin Kaepernick gets signed. And my thing is, if he gets signed by a team today, and we go back to watching football, what was accomplished?
So I wouldn't necessarily say what he accomplished.
No, I'm saying,
But
us
what
as
did-
the people,
but what
because
did-
in support of him,
Right.
we're saying we're not going to watch until he gets a job. So are we doing this just so he can get a job?
Right.
Or
So-
are we doing this to back the core of what he was actually fighting for?
Or
Right.
kneeling
So-
for.
Yeah,
Right,
because now it's all about him getting a job,
Right.
and that's not what he did that for.
And so
No.
and so the question, so the quintessential question that you're asking is really that we should be thinking about is two parts. What you said, what are we really trying to accomplish here,
Mm-hmm.
and what are we fighting for?
Exactly.
What issue? Which issue are we fighting for?
Right. Because if it's about him getting a job, it's not worth it. If it's about him getting a job in the NFL, me not watching the game is not worth it. Now, if I'm saying I'm not gonna watch no more NFL games until they create a law that says that if you do such and such,
If you kneel, you have the First Amendment to kneeling, standing, shouting, whatever you want to do.
He didn't even break a law. He was actually performing a free will act that we have through the
It was supposed
Constitution.
to have, right?
You know what I'm saying? He didn't do nothing wrong. But it's not even about that no more.
Right. Right. We've gotten so far away from that we don't even, like you said, we don't even know what we're fighting for. And so for us as a people to be taken seriously, we really have to begin to define that. And really, that is, I'm done.
I'm done.
That is really, I believe, the job of an organization like the NAACP in the 21st century, and why the organization right now is struggling mightily, because the job of a march, the job of a sit-in, the job of a protest, the role of a protest, the impact of it was different back in 1969 than it is today. And today, and this is a conversation for another day, but I'm just gonna put this out there. We have to figure out what the equivalent of a march is. A march today is more symbolic than substantive.
Yeah.
A march in 1969 was substantive.
Yep.
But today we have different modes and different methods of communication. We have the communication that we have takes us wider and deeper than ever before as far as how many people we can reach and how deeply we can reach them. So we have to figure out, okay, maybe what is the digital equivalent to a march? What is the social media equivalent to a sit-in? What is the equivalent to a product boycott in today's landscape? And our civil rights organizations need to really figure that out and really begin to craft better messages that can help us to really answer those questions and to help bring us forward.
I agree, man. This is we can talk about this all day too. We're gonna wrap it up. We went over time. We're gonna wrap it up, but I think you made a great point by saying we have to figure out and we can't let nobody else figure that part out for us. We have to figure it out. And so, for those of you that are boycotting football games, holler to you. But I hope that it doesn't stop there, because in my opinion, I think that's, if you're okay with watching football just because you get a job, you're actually hurting the process more than you're helping. So, we salute Colin Kaepernick for his stance, and we do pray for him that he actually continue to fight the good fight, because we know it's not easy. We know it's not hard. We all have our own struggles and issues we deal with because of the color of our skin, and it's unfortunate. But of course, that's how it goes. That's how it's been, and so we have to continue to hold each other up, man. At some point, we gonna all end up on the same team.
Got to.
At some point, we gonna all end up on the same team. We got to, because that's the only way it's gonna work.
It's the only way.
The only way it's gonna work. So, we thank y'all for listening. We thank y'all for watching. If you was on Facebook Live, real quick, you have a podcast that you do every day called The Journey.
Yes.
And you can get it on. It's on.
The podcast,
I was about to say audio, but that's not.
the podcast. I produce the podcast on Anchor.fm.
Anchor.
It is a new and emerging platform wherein individuals can produce their own podcasts.
Yes.
Straight from their phones for free in whatever format that they want to do with it. I do it every day. So episodes are available on Anchor, and the way that it works is you have a station, just like a radio station. You have a station on Anchor, and so when you do a segment, that segment stays live on your station for 24 hours. And then what you do is, if you have enough content that you want for that particular day, you can hit episode, and then you can take all of those segments within that 24-hour period that are live. You can take those and turn them into an episode. So I do that every day on the Anchor FM platform, and then they will allow you to syndicate that on other platforms. So I'm also available. If you look up The Journey and then you put my name in, I'm also available on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play Music, on TuneIn Radio, and also on Stitcher Radio. So those are 4 different options, actually 5, that you can check out the show. Anchor.fm/The Journey, and you can check that out, and definitely love for you to join the conversation I'm having over there on a daily basis.
Sweet. We appreciate you coming in again.
And I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
No problem. Our boy Alan had to go, but we thank him for coming in. And if you can, support his new book, Create Your World. Until next week, y'all keep it locked right here on WOGRadio.net. We stream 24/7. So just because we about to end this show don't mean you have to stop listening, all right? Don't forget, as always, stay woke, man. Your due season is closer than you think. Until next week, y'all be good. Peace.